I watched him through his corner office window, phone pressed to his ear, as the 40-foot digital billboard flickered to life just outside. His coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. The color drained from his face as he read the message I'd crafted specifically for him. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the next 6 months. And the best part? Every client walking into Meridian Marketing would see it too. Hi. I'm Maya. 3 months ago, I thought I was building something real at Meridian Marketing. I'd grown their social media accounts from 12,000 to 2.8 million followers in 18 months. I'd turned their brand voice from corporate wallpaper into something people actually wanted to engage with. Their biggest client renewals? They came through campaigns I designed. But apparently, to my boss Marcus, I was still just the social media girl. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and Marcus's expensive cologne, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. I sat at the end of the polished table, my laptop open to the presentation I'd spent 3 weeks perfecting. Revenue projections, engagement analytics, competitor analysis. So, Maya, Marcus said, not looking up from his phone, walk us through this social media thing. Social media thing. Like it was some hobby I did in my spare time. I clicked to my first slide. The Q3 campaign generated 340% more qualified leads than traditional advertising. Our cost per acquisition dropped by right. He waved his hand dismissively. But what about real marketing? Tom, show her what actual strategy looks like. Tom, Harvard MBA Tom, who'd been here 6 months and still couldn't tell the difference between organic reach and paid promotion, cleared his throat and launched into a presentation about synergistic brand positioning. It was the same recycled corporate speak I'd heard in a dozen meetings, dressed up with buzzwords and zero substance. I watched the other executives nod along like he was revealing the secrets of the universe. Sarah from HR actually took notes. Now that's what I call strategic thinking, Marcus announced when Tom finished. Maya, maybe you can learn something from this approach. Think bigger picture instead of just posting. My throat tightened. Just posting. Building a community of millions was something you did while watching Netflix. Actually, I said, keeping my voice steady, if you look at slide 12, you'll see that just posting drove $2.3 million in attributable revenue last quarter. That's more than Tom's entire department. The room went quiet. Marcus finally looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from bored to irritated. Maya, I think you're missing the point here. Social media is important, sure, but it's not real marketing. It's not strategy. You post pretty pictures and write captions. Tom here is developing integrated campaigns that actually move the needle. The words came out as Maya than I intended. Tom's last campaign had a 0.3% engagement rate. My pretty pictures had 14%. Marcus's jaw tightened. Engagement isn't everything, Maya. We're talking about serious business here, not influencer metrics. I felt heat creeping up my neck. Round the table, I could see people shifting in their seats, avoiding eye contact. Sarah was suddenly very interested in her notepad. Marcus, with respect, you don't actually know what I do you? The wrong thing to say. I knew at the moment the words left my mouth. He leaned back in his chair, that thin smile I'd come to recognize as a warning sign spreading across his face. Maya, let me be very clear about something. You're great at what you do, don't get me wrong. But you're a social media girl. That's your lane. Tom here? He's a strategist. He thinks about the big picture. You think about hashtags. Social media girl. Not manager. Not strategist. Not the person who'd single-handedly built their digital presence from nothing. I see. My voice came out calm, controlled. Years of dealing with condescending professors and dismissive colleagues had taught me how to swallow rage and smile. And this distinction is based on what, exactly? Experience, education, understanding how real business works. He gestured toward Tom. MBA from Harvard. 5 years at McKinsey. That's the kind of background that builds real strategy. I glanced at Tom, who was studying his hands like they held the answers to life's mysteries. He hadn't said a word to defend me. None of them had. I see, I repeated. So my results don't matter. Just my pedigree. Results matter, Maya. But so does knowing your place. Marcus stood up, straightening his tie. I think this meeting has run its course. Tom, excellent presentation. Let's grab lunch and discuss next steps. They filed out, leaving me alone with my laptop and the bitter taste of public humiliation. Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see Marcus laughing with Tom as they walked toward his corner office, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. I closed my laptop slowly, carefully. My hands weren't shaking. Not yet. Social media girl. Know your place. I sat there for another 5 minutes, watching Marcus through his office window as he gestured animatedly, probably recounting my overreach to Tom. His corner office with its perfect view of the city, the digital billboard across the street dark and waiting for the next advertiser. That's when the idea started forming. Small at first, just a whisper of possibility. I pulled out my phone and opened the media buying platform I used for client campaigns. My fingers moved almost automatically, navigating to outdoor advertising, then to digital billboards. The rate card for the 40-foot display directly across from our building appeared on my screen. $24,000 for a month. I'd made the company 10 times that much last quarter. Marcus's laughter echoed through the office as I started calculating exactly how much of my own money I was willing to spend to teach him the difference between a social media girl and someone who actually understood how to move the needle. The coffee shop across from Meridian Marketing buzzed with the usual morning crowd, but I barely noticed. I'd been sitting here for 2 hours, laptop open, designing the most expensive piece of content I'd ever created. 48 words. That's all the space I had on the billboard. Every single one had to count. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister, "Drinks tonight? You've been MIA since that work thing." That work thing. Right. Most people would call getting publicly humiliated by their boss that work thing too. I ignored the text and went back to my design. Clean, professional typography. Corporate blue background, the exact same shade as Meridian's brand guidelines. And in the center, simple white text that would be visible from Marcus's corner office. * real marketing results, 2.8 M followers, $2.3 million revenue, generated by your social media girl. Maya Chen, Senior Digital Strategist * Senior Digital Strategist. The title I should have had months ago. I saved the file and opened the media buying platform. The billboard was available starting Monday. 6 months minimum buy. $144,000. My savings account balance stared back at me, $67,000. I closed the laptop. This was insane. I was planning to spend my entire emergency fund plus take on debt too. What? Prove a point? Get revenge? But as I looked up at Meridian's building, watching the early employees filter in through the glass lobby, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. For the first time since that meeting, I wasn't reacting to Marcus's dismissal, I was acting. My phone rang. Marcus. Maya, where are you? The Johnson Industries presentation is at 10. I glanced at my watch. 9:47 a.m. I'll be right up. Good. And Maya? Let's keep yesterday's discussion between us, okay? No need to get HR involved or make a big deal out of nothing. Make a big deal out of nothing. He was already trying to rewrite history, minimize what had happened. Probably spent the evening crafting his version of events in case I complained. Of course, Marcus wouldn't want to make a big deal out of nothing. Exactly. See you in 10. I hung up and reopened my laptop. The media platform was still logged in, the billboard rate card glowing on my screen. My cursor hovered over the Reserve Now button. What was the worst that could happen? I'd be broke. I'd probably get fired. I might have to move back in with my parents at 31. But I'd also make sure that every client, every executive, every person who walked into that building would know exactly what Marcus thought of results versus respect. I clicked Reserve Now. The confirmation screen appeared immediately. Payment processing. I entered my credit card information for the deposit, my bank details for the monthly charges. Payment confirmed. Installation scheduled for Monday at 6 a.m. My heart was pounding as I walked back into the building. Janet at reception smiled and waved, the same friendly gesture she'd given me every morning for 18 months. By next week, she'd be looking at me differently. Everyone would. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, I could see Marcus through his office window, adjusting his tie in preparation for the Johnson presentation. Tom sat across from his desk, probably getting a pep talk about real strategy. I walked to my desk and pulled up the Johnson Industries social media audit I'd prepared. 3 months of research, competitor analysis, audience insights. Everything we'd need to win a $2 million account. Maya, Marcus called out. Conference room. Time to show Johnson what looks like real marketing. He was already setting up Tom to take credit for my work. I gathered my files and headed to the conference room, where David Johnson and his marketing director were waiting. David was old school, probably thought social media was for teenagers and cat videos. David, great to see you again, Marcus said, all handshakes and corporate charm. I'd like you to meet Tom Rodriguez, our head of strategic marketing, and Maya Chin, who handles our social media efforts. That was the intern who posted to Facebook. Tom launched into his presentation first. The same generic strategy framework he'd presented to every client since he arrived. Integrated campaigns, multi-channel approaches, synergistic brand positioning. David nodded politely, but I could see his attention wandering. And now, Marcus announced, Maya will walk you through some of the tactical social media components that support Tom's strategy. Tactical support. I was the supporting actress in my own presentation. I clicked to my first slide, but instead of the social media tactics Marcus expected, I showed David something else, a complete digital ecosystem analysis of his industry. Mr. Johnson, your competitors are fighting over the same 3% of customers who read trade publications and attend industry conferences. Meanwhile, 67% of your potential buyers are researching solutions online, and you're invisible to them. David leaned forward. Invisible how? Your biggest competitor has 47,000 followers across platforms. You have 340. They're generating 12,000 qualified leads per month through content marketing. You're generating maybe 200 through traditional channels. I clicked to the next slide, a month-by-month growth plan that would transform Johnson Industries from an industry ghost into a thought leader. This isn't about posting pretty pictures, Mr. Johnson. This is about building relationships with decision-makers before they ever talk to your sales team. When someone in your industry has a problem, you want them thinking of your company first, not discovering you exist when they Google solutions. For the next 20 minutes, I walked David through a comprehensive digital strategy that would revolutionize how his company found customers. Marcus sat perfectly still, his usual interruptions nowhere to be found. This is impressive, Maya, David said when I finished. How quickly could we implement something like this? If we start Monday, you'd see measurable results within 60 days. Full market leadership within a year. Marcus, I think we need to discuss terms. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Marcus found his voice. Absolutely, David. Tom and I can have a proposal to you by, actually, David interrupted, I'd like Maya to lead this. She clearly understands our market better than anyone else in the room. The silence stretched for exactly 4 seconds. I counted. Well, Marcus finally said, Maya is certainly capable. But Tom would provide the strategic oversight. With respect, Marcus, David said, I'm not interested in oversight. I want the person who just painted a picture of my industry that I've never seen before, even though I've been in it for 20 years. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite vindication, not yet, but something close. I'd be honored to lead the Johnson account, Mr. Johnson. Marcus's smile looked like it might crack his face. Of course. Maya, Tom, why don't you two discuss how to structure this collaboration? He was already spinning it, making sure Tom got credit for any success. After David left, Marcus pulled me aside. Nice work in there, Maya. Really? But remember, Tom's got the client management experience. You'll handle the execution. He'll handle strategy and client communications. There it was. I'd just landed a $2 million account, demonstrated expertise that impressed a CEO, and I was still being relegated to execution. I understand, I said. Good. Oh, and Maya? Let's keep this between us for now. Don't want the rest of the team thinking they can freelance their way into bigger roles. I nodded and walked back to my desk, where I opened my email and found the confirmation from the billboard company. Installation, Monday, 6 a.m. Duration, 6 months. Location, directly facing 1247, Commerce Street, floor 15. Marcus's corner office was on the 15th floor of 1247, Commerce Street. Monday was 3 days away. I looked across the office at Marcus, who was already on the phone with someone, probably Tom, planning how to position himself as the mastermind behind the Johnson win. In 72 hours, every conversation in this office would change. The Johnson account would be the least of Marcus's problems. My phone buzzed with another text from my sister. Seriously, what's going on? You're being weird. I typed back, just working on something big. I'll call you Monday. By Monday, I'd either be the most respected person in this building, or I'd be cleaning out my desk. But Marcus would finally understand the difference between a social media girl and someone who actually knew how to move the needle. Monday morning, 5:47 a.m. I stood in the Starbucks across the street with a venti coffee and a perfect view of the installation crew setting up the billboard. The 40-foot display flickered to life just as the first employees started arriving at Meridian Marketing. My message illuminated the entire side of the building. Asterisk real marketing results, 2.8 M followers, $2.3 million revenue, generated by your social media girl. Maya Chen, Senior Digital Strategist. Asterisk I'd added one final touch over the weekend. Meridian's logo in the corner, making it look almost like an official company announcement. The billboard company's legal team had required disclaimers in tiny print at the bottom, but from 15 floors up, Marcus would only see the message. My phone started buzzing at 7:23 a.m. Marcus, what the hell is this? Marcus, Maya, call me now. Marcus, get to my office immediately. I finished my coffee and took the elevator to 15. The office was buzzing with an energy I'd never felt before. People were clustered around windows, phones out, taking pictures. Janet at reception looked stunned. Maya, she whispered as I walked past, did you really? I just smiled and headed toward Marcus's office. Through his glass walls, I could see him pacing like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear. Probably calling the building management, trying to figure out how to make it disappear. Tom sat in the chair across from Marcus's desk, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. I knocked on the door frame. Maya, get in here. Now. Marcus's face was red, a vein pulsing in his forehead I'd never noticed before. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm not sure what you mean. Don't play games with me. That billboard. When did you? He gestured wildly toward the window. You can't just put up unauthorized advertising featuring our company logo. Actually, I can. I checked with legal. Public advertising, public street, truthful statements. All protected speech. I'd spent Sunday afternoon with a lawyer friend, making sure every word was bulletproof. Protected speech? Maya, this is corporate suicide. Do you have any idea how this makes the company look? Like a company that gets results from digital marketing? Tom shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Maybe we should discuss this privately. No, Marcus cut him off. I want Tom here. He needs to understand what happens when people don't respect boundaries. He turned back to me. Maya, you're going to call whoever you hired and get that thing taken down. Today. I'm afraid that's not possible. It's a 6-month contract. The silence that followed was profound. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic 15 floors below, the rapid rhythm of Marcus's breathing. 6 months. His voice came out strangled. You signed a 6-month contract. That's correct. Do you have any idea what this will cost us? The client meetings I'll have to explain? The damage to our professional reputation? Actually, I think it might help our reputation. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. We've gained 12,000 followers since this morning. The post about the billboard has been shared 800 times. Adweek already reached out for an interview. Marcus stared at my phone screen like it might bite him. Adweek? They want to talk about innovative marketing tactics and workplace culture in the industry. Should be an interesting conversation. I watched him process this information. Adweek meant industry attention. Industry attention meant scrutiny. Scrutiny meant questions about why a social media girl felt compelled to spend her own money on a billboard just to get recognition for her work. Maya, he said carefully, I think there's been a misunderstanding. About Friday's meeting. About your role here. Oh. You're obviously a valued member of the team. Maybe we haven't been clear enough about that. Tom was studying his shoes again, probably wishing he'd called in sick. Clear about what, specifically? Marcus walked to his window and stared at the billboard. From his angle, he could see every word perfectly. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the next 6 months. About your contributions, your strategic thinking, maybe it's time we discussed a promotion. A promotion, senior digital strategist. Isn't that what the billboard says? He turned back to me, attempting a smile that looked more like a grimace. Maybe we should make it official. I'd imagined this moment for 3 days, but the reality felt different than I'd expected. Not triumphant, exactly. More like clarity. That's generous, Marcus. But I've actually been thinking about my next steps. His expression shifted. Next steps? David Johnson called me yesterday. He wants to discuss bringing me on as his VP of Digital Strategy. Apparently, our presentation really impressed him. This was true. David had called, though I hadn't given him an answer yet. Let's not be hasty. I'm sure we can work something out that makes sense for everyone. I'm sure we can. I looked around his corner office, the view, the space, the implicit power it represented. 3 days ago, I would have killed for his respect. Now I realized I didn't need it. The billboard was never about you, Marcus. It wasn't. It was about me. About remembering who I am and what I'm worth. I moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? You might want to update my title in the company directory, just until I decide about David's offer. I left him standing by his window, Tom still studying his shoes, and walked back to my desk. The office had settled into a strange normalcy, but I could feel the undercurrent of whispers, the sideways glances, the shift in how people looked at me. My computer pinged with a new email. The subject line made me smile. Billboard inquiry Forbes magazine. I opened it and started reading. Then I opened my laptop and began crafting a response that would tell my story, the real story, about what happens when companies mistake talent for job titles, results for hierarchy, value for compliance. Through the window, I could see my billboard shining in the afternoon sun. Tomorrow morning, Marcus would see it again. And the day after that. For 6 months, every client meeting, every executive presentation, every moment of his workday would be framed by a reminder that he'd underestimated the wrong person. But the billboard wasn't really for him anymore. It was for every woman who'd been called just a social media girl or just an assistant or just anything. It was proof that sometimes the best response to being underestimated isn't getting angry. It's getting even. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Just saw your billboard on LinkedIn. Holy shit, Maya. Call me. I looked around the office one more time, at Marcus still standing by his window, at Tom finally looking up from his shoes, at the dozen colleagues who were seeing me differently than they had this morning. Then I picked up my phone and started dialing David Johnson's number. After all, I had a career to build. And now everyone knew exactly what I was capable of building. 6 months later, the billboard came down. By then, I didn't need it anymore. But every time I drive past that building, I remember the morning I stopped being anyone's social media girl and started being exactly who I'd always been, someone who knows how to move the needle.